All right, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Arnold. I'm with Leidos Flight Service, and I am the Director of Innovation and Outreach. So what that means, anything with our services that you like, I'm directly responsible for. Anything that you don't like is probably someone else. No, I'm kidding. So we are happy and proud to, under the FAA's Future Flight Services Program contract, to bring pilots new and enhanced flight service capabilities. And we'll talk about quite a few of those capabilities as well as where we're going. Topics that we'll cover today. Why do pilots call Leidos Flight Service? Weather weakness, third-party vendors, AC 9192, a pilot's guide to pre-flight briefing, and some of our online capabilities and new features that we have coming out. Before we get too deep into this, I do want to frame this discussion a little bit and share with you that back in April, we participated with the Flight Service Engagement Team, contractors, FAA, and they had a seminar called FPAW, Friends and Partners of Aviation Weather. That seminar consisted of about 350 industry stakeholders, anyone from Boeing to Jeppesen to American Airlines, et cetera. And what they did at the beginning of that seminar, they asked several questions of the attendees just to see how they would respond. And then they gave them the answers. And then at the end, they asked the questions again to see if they stuck. So I want to give you guys a pop quiz as well. It's not graded. I'll give you the answers, and it's only 6 questions, and they're true or false, okay? So first things first, the concept of a legal briefing or a certified briefing is real and defined by the FAA. Raise your hand if you say true. Raise your hand if you say false. The answer is false. And we'll get into this in depth. Amongst the respondents at the seminar, at the FPAW seminar, the answers were split 50-50 on that question. The next question, a pilot needs to call flight service to be compliant with FAR 91103 for pre-flight planning. How many say true? How many say false? False is correct. We had about an 85-15 split, or excuse me, a 15-85 split. 85 said false. Yes? Sure, and what, so the question was if you were to get into trouble, how would you document that you briefed yourself? I will address that, and I'll get there in just a second, but and if I forget, throw something at me, okay? The next question. The FAA requires a briefing to be recorded or digitally logged as proof that the briefing was conducted. True or false? The answer is false. We had about a 60-40 split on that amongst respondents. And more to the point of your question, you say, well, if I do get into trouble and I don't have anything documented, how are they going to know that I got a briefing? My answer to that is, well, I'm not a lawyer and I don't give legal advice. But I would recommend, do what's comfortable. And again, you kind of get into that discussion, just because you can, does that mean that you should? Again, every pilot will have to answer that for themselves. But I personally prefer to have a paper trail, and our website does offer that with the pilot history and several other third-party vendors as well. Next question. A pilot may use third-party vendors. When I say third-party vendors, I mean ForeFlight, I mean Garmin, I mean flightplan.com, et cetera. A pilot may use third-party vendors to be compliant with FAR 91103 requirements for pre-flight planning. How many say true? How many say false? The answer is true. Again, and the point that we want to make with that question is that flight service is not the end-all be-all for pre-flight weather briefing. There are a lot of options out there. Last 2 questions, I promise. Well, I don't promise. I've got some more questions later. The FAA has described how a pilot may be compliant with conducting a pre-flight self-briefing. How many say true? How many say false? The answer is true, and we'll talk about that as well today. Last question. As part of its modernization, flight service will no longer provide phone services. True? False? False is the answer. And I'm here to definitively say that the briefers are not going away. The briefers are part of our business model. They will always be part of our business model. That business model is changing, but again, we are not getting rid of the briefers. We hear all sorts of conspiracy theories, and again, take it from me. With that being said, why do pilots call Leidos Flight Service? We ask this question every year, and the reason why we ask this question every year is because we want to make sure that the answer is still the same and that we're providing the best service to you. The first reason, FAR Part 91-103, pre-flight action, and I'll quote the regs. Each pilot in command shall, before beginning a flight, become familiar with all available information concerning that flight. That is a fantastically vague statement. So to tell you a little bit about me, again, my name is Jeff Arnold. I've been a flight instructor for 15 years. I was a briefer for 7 years, an operations supervisor, and then I took this role in outreach. As a flight instructor, I trained somewhere in the neighborhood of 270 students over the course of my career. And I can tell you with confidence that had I tried to familiarize myself with all available information concerning my flight, I never would have gotten off the ground. There's just too much out there. With that being said, flight service is referenced in the AIM, the AC 0045, the Aviation Weather Handbook, other various government references. Flight instructors have been instructing their students to call us since the beginning of time, which is a good thing. And previously, pilots were able to come in and get a brief in person. Unfortunately, that's no longer possible. We're down to 2 facilities, and one in Fort Worth and one in DC. The last reason, or well, not the last, but another reason why pilots call flight service, they're looking for that last-minute check for adverse conditions. How do we define adverse conditions, at least at flight service? Any weather advisory, any AirMet, SIGMET, convective SIGMET, weather advisory, right? And we also take into consideration any TFRs and any what we call adverse NOTAMs. How do we define adverse NOTAMs? Anything that could affect your decision to fly into that airport, right? So a closed runway, a closed airport, a disabled aircraft on the runway. Another thing you should keep an eye out for would be no fuel. So I told you before that the FAA has come out and indicated how a pilot can be compliant with 91-103 when it comes to self-briefing. And again, that is the business model that we're moving towards. We are moving towards a self-briefing online business model. And I'll tell you why that's not a bad thing. How many people in the room would, if you're being honest, would consider weather to be one of your weaker subjects? Yeah, get a shot of that. That's most of the room. How many of you are comfortable interpreting weather products? There's the problem. And that's a problem that the FAA recognizes. That's a problem that we recognize. We recognize that there is a weakness when it comes to weather because it's such a vast subject in the general aviation community, and we are setting out to try and fix that. Well, how do we fix that? To fix that problem, the pilots are going to have to get their hands dirty. They're going to have to get in, they're going to have to self-brief, get their hands in it, go through the information, and then when they have a question on that information, call us. And that is the business model that we're moving towards. It's a briefing by exception model. And what that means, go online, take a look at the information. When you have a question, call us and we'll fill in the gaps. Yes, sir. Sure. Sure. So it's the question was, if I go online and I brief myself, how do I let you guys know that I just need to be updated on a couple of items? And that's a great question. We, of course, do have it wouldn't be a standard briefing. It would be more of an abbreviated briefing. But if you go on 1-800-WXbrief.com and you brief yourself, there is a log of that briefing. And when you call in, the specialist can see what you've looked at and what time you looked at it, and he can give you what we call a changes or a delta briefing, and they can brief you specifically on those changes. And that saves you guys a lot of time instead of having to go back through the whole ordeal. With that being said, AC 9192 is a document that was really intended to try to combat that weakness when it comes to self-briefing, when it comes to weather comprehension and weather understanding. AC 9192 is an educational roadmap for the development and implementation of pre-flight self-briefings, as you see on the slides. It does offer flight planning, weather interpretation, risk identification, and mitigation skills. Again, adhering to the guidelines will better prepare pilots to interpret and use real-time weather information. The team that developed this is a team of contractors and FAA representatives that really got together and said, how do we put a document out that is user-friendly and people will read? And they've done a really good job with this document. If you haven't read it, well, how many have heard of this document before today? A couple. How many have read it? A couple, right? So we are trying to get the word out. That document does exist. It is very user-friendly. It is not a dry government document, I promise. With that being said, it provides guidance for required pre-flight actions under 91103. Guidance being the key word there. Again, we'll never tell you this is how you do it. You have to do it the same way every time. And again, as we said before, it does encourage pilots to use flight service in more of a consultative capacity when needed. I want to talk about some of the online capabilities that we have on 1-800-WX-BRIEF. If you don't have an account with us, again, we're a free public service, a free account, go sign up, it's easy. With that being said, we offer ICAO flight planning, and again, more along the lines of everything that's coming that's good is my fault. We do have a feature that's coming a little bit later this year, or perhaps early next year, but it will remove the need to put the letter in front of the speed and altitude in the ICAO flight plan form. So you can just enter your speed instead of instead of having to put the N or the A or the F, right? We offer route and area briefings. We have a pretty good nav log. It's very pilot friendly. It's kneeboard friendly. You can print it out, you can fold it in half, and it's designed to fit on your kneeboard. We have a lot of other features coming out that are really oriented around the nav log. We have the interactive map. We call the interactive map LAC for local area knowledge, but we have some really impressive tools. If you've been on our website and you've seen the interactive map, you'll notice that it looks a lot like SkyVector, and well, that's because it is SkyVector. However, we've gone in and we've added several extra layers that you won't be able to find anywhere else. And one of the things that we've added, we've got a procedures tab where you can go in, you can look at local airspace procedures, and you can actually read that reg. For example, the Grand Canyon Special Flight Rules area in Arizona, you can go in and look at that. Another thing that we have frequencies. You can go in, you can get frequencies for center, high, low, approach, flight service frequencies. Those are all available for you at a click. We've also got topography. And so what we did, we have a lot of specialists in flight services known for having specialists that know these specific areas and the weather patterns better than anyone else. And so what we did, we got a group of them together and we said, how do we take what's in your brain and put it on paper? And that got a lot of jokes. when we said that. But that's what we did. And so we went in and we put all of the topography knowledge. Again, topography has a huge, in geological formations, has a huge effect on the weather, believe it or not. It's the reason why in Texas, all of the weather just goes like this around my house and we never get any rain. But we have that available for you. You can click on geographic features. You can read a paragraph or two about it. And again, it's very user-friendly and it's easy to read. Lastly, one of the things that we put in is that specific weather knowledge. So we went to these specialists and we said, okay, we got the topography. How do we put the weather knowledge in? So you can go in, you can click on Wisconsin, and it'll give you a list of topics. Wisconsin winter weather, summer weather, fall weather, Great Lakes weather, summer storm weather. You can click on one of those tabs and it'll give you a pop-up box with 2 or 3 paragraphs, almost like a textbook, that describe typical weather for that area. It is a very powerful tool. I really encourage you to go exploring. The interactive map is one thing that you do not have to be logged into our website to see. You can access that via just the landing page, and we also have all of the weather charts available to you as well that you would find on AWC. We have easy access to TAFs, METARs, and NOTAMs. For TAFs and METARs, we have the ability to text and request a METAR. You can text FLT, SVC, whatever those numbers are, I'm sorry, I don't have them memorized. But it's a short text, 6 digits, and you can say METAR for Kilo Oscar Sierra Hotel, and it'll send you a METAR. You can also say METAR Kilo Oscar Sierra Hotel PT, and it will send you the plain text version of that. You have a question? FLT SVC. I may have to fact check that. With that being said, again, that is available to you. One thing that we're looking into, so your onboard equipment, for some reason, won't accept text messages from shorty phone numbers like that, so we are looking into a fix. We are aware of that. Again, we have the weather charts. We have the ability to save flight plans, favorite flight plans, recent flight plans. You can save your aircraft. You can upload individual aircraft performance data so that our system can use that to calculate fuel burn, time and route, optimal altitudes, that kind of thing. We have account and aircraft management tools for some of the larger flight schools. And again, this is a by request feature. We do offer fleet management tools for those individuals as well. For advanced services, we have quite a few things. We have the ACAS, the adverse condition automated service. And so what that does, that's geared around, again, that last minute check, and it will send you either a text message, an email, or a website notification that adverse conditions exist across your route of flight that are new that you haven't seen yet, right? And you can go in, you can look at a graphical depiction of those adverse conditions that we listed before, and it'll give you the text of the condition as well. We have easy activate, easy close. How many of you have used that feature? None? It's great. You can go on, you can enable it on your account, and when you follow, and again, this is for VFR flight plans. You can activate and close your VFR flight plans via text message. It is super easy, super convenient to use. We also have close flight plan reminders. How many of you have forgotten to close a VFR flight plan? Yeah. I did it a few months ago, and they were like, of all the people, right? So we have surveillance enhanced search and rescue. And the best way to describe that, there are a lot of third-party vendors. I know Garmin's got one. There's one called SpiderTrax. It's a device you can put in your airplane. It sends us position reports periodically. And if for some reason we stop receiving position reports, either maybe you lost electrical power or the device stopped working or God forbid there was an accident, we start the search and rescue process early instead of waiting for you to get to your destination and then 30 minutes past that ETA for us to start looking for you. Okay, so that's a really neat tool that's available. We have pre-flight summaries, ATC notices. We also have a required statements opt-out. So there are several statements that the specialists are required to give you by the FAA. You can go on our website, you can read those statements, and you can check that you opt out of those statements and they don't have to give them to you anymore. One of them would be the required statement for international NOTAMs. Check NOTAM data as soon as practicable after entering foreign airspace, as our NOTAM information may be unreliable or incomplete. I may have botched that a little bit. We have easy amend. And I know it says coming soon. Coming soon is kind of a relative term. So I can't remember if that comes this fall or in the spring. I'll look that up for you guys. But easy amend is well, before we get there, how many of you have filed an IFR flight plan, put your route into your GPS or your FMS or whatever you're using, and then you go get your clearance and ATC has changed your route? Just about everyone here. With easy amend, what the goal is, when you file that flight plan and that flight plan gets shipped to the center and their flight data unit changes the routing for whatever reason, what it'll do, it'll generate an email that comes back to you that will say ATC has changed your route, here's the route, do you accept these changes? You click yes, and again, you can plug that route into your FMS and they'll clear you as filed. With that being said, we are working on a text message capability for that. It'll be a while before we iron out all the kinks, but that is coming. And as the gentleman in the hat indicated earlier, we do have the pilot history. It was previously valid for 15 days. Now it's valid for 45 days. You can go back in, you can look at any briefings that you've generated, any flight plans that you filed, activated, or closed, or any of the above. One thing that I also want to ask you, how many of you have ever used a self-briefing checklist? That is available for you in the AC 9192 document. We also have a self-briefing checklist on our website that you can use. Again, it's like pilots love checklists. It's like anything else that you use. It's there, it's available, it's comprehensive. So I told you that we had some new features coming up. This says early August, but I haven't gotten a chance to update the slides. This is coming August 4th. And what this is an IVR system upgrade. You say, well, Jeff, what is an IVR? IVR is an interactive voice recognition system. So when you call 1-800-WX-BRIEF, you get the young lady's voice that says you can say briefer, you can say, whatever. That's the automated IVR system, okay? So what we've done, we've made it so that you can activate and close your VFR flight plans via that automated system. For example, it'll say if it detects a proposed VFR flight plan within 2 hours of your departure, it'll say press 3 to activate your VFR flight plan for your tail number departing at 1300 Zulu from Kilo Alpha Delta Sierra. You press 3, it'll ask you how many minutes from now would you like to activate your flight plan. Press a number between 0 and 30 followed by pound, and let's say that we called it 1300. We decided to activate our flight plan for 30 minutes in the future. At 1330, that flight plan will activate. That's what we call an assumed departure. The system will, when you call back in, the system will check your online account to see if you have an active flight plan, and again, it will offer you the ability to close that flight plan. With that being said, there are a few nuances, and I should have put the bottom 2 bullets at the top, but I didn't, and here we are. So I'll start there. A pilot must have a unique pilot web account. So that means that you must go on 1-800-WXBrief.com and make a free account. And when you make that account, you have to put the phone number that you're calling in from under the primary phone number option, okay? So that's what we mean when we say link to primary phone number. So what I'm telling you is that our system does not look at the phone number that you have in your flight plan. Okay, very important distinction. Our system just isn't capable of rifling through thousands of flight plans at a time to find your specific flight plan. What it does do, it looks at your phone number, it determines whether or not that phone number has an account, and then it checks that account to see if you have a proposal or an active flight plan. With that being said, to activate your VFR flight plan or to close your VFR flight plan, you must call from that phone number that's linked to your account to be eligible for those services. A couple of nuances. For activations, the system will not offer activation services if more than one flight plan is detected for the same departure time. If you have 2 flight plans in the system departing at 1300 Zulu, quite frankly, our system just isn't smart enough to figure out which one you want. So double check and make sure that you only have 1 flight plan on file for that departure time. Now, if you file one for 1300 and another one for 1301, our system is going to give you the one with the earlier departure time. Okay, and again, part of the automation, it does read you which flight plan it's going to activate, and it gives you the tail number with the departure and destination airports. For closures, the system will not offer closure services if the flight plan is in search and rescue or overdue status. There's a very good reason that we did that. We don't want any flight plans to be accidentally closed if we're supposed to be looking for you. With that being said, to sum everything up, you've seen flight service change a lot over the years. We've gone from a ton of facilities across the country that were operated by the FAA to a private contractor with 2 facilities. Again, the Fort Worth facility handles everything west of the Mississippi, and the DC facility handles everything east of the Mississippi. We've changed a lot. Our business model has changed accordingly, again, under the direction of the FAA. With that being said, we're proud to help the general aviation community in any way that we can. We thank you for calling us. We're happy to be there. You can connect with us online, again, through our website. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find direct links for those items on our website as well. Again, usually when we put out a new feature, you'll see it first on social media because, you know, it's not true until it makes it on Facebook, right? So thank you guys for coming, and I'll be around for any questions that you may have. Y'all have a great show.